Hello there, everyone. Mark Decote here. I have a special announcement before we get to today's podcast. Resourceful Designer is in consideration again this year for a podcast award. Now, last year in 2016, I was a finalist for the award, and I would love to have another chance this year at winning. But I need your help to get on the ballot. Please visit resourcefuldesigner.com/podcast awards and nominate Resourceful Designer in the arts category. Now, feel free to also nominate the show in the People's Choice category, but it's the arts category that really matters. You can also choose any show in the other categories that you might like. Now, remember, once you submit your nomination in a particular category, it cannot be changed. So make sure you choose Resourceful Designer in arts before you hit the submit button. And if we get enough people nominating the show, there's a good chance I become a finalist 2 years in a row. And we'll keep our fingers crossed that I could even become a winner. So I thank you in advance for your support. And now, on with the show. Resourceful Designer, episode 79, Word of Mouth Referrals for Your Design Business.
Welcome to the Resourceful Designer Podcast, offering solutions to streamline your graphic and web design business so you can get back to designing. And now, your host. He was a mama's boy and he's proud of it. Mark Decote.
Welcome to the podcast. I thank you for taking the time to listen to me, plug me in your ears as we discuss running a graphic design business. Now, whether this is your first time tuning in or if you're a long-time listener, I do appreciate the time you spend with me on this podcast. Now, I have a great topic today, and it's one that was brought about because of a previous episode I had done. And a lot of comments and a lot of people reaching out to me for more on this topic, and that's about referrals. Specifically in this episode, word of mouth referrals. But before I get to that, I just want to say that I got my new iMac. Yay! Yeah, got my new iMac set up right in front of me. Actually, I've got both my iMacs, my old one and my new one set up here. But the new one is so blazing fast compared to the old one, my old 2010 model. Well, this brand new one that I just got is just smoking fast, and I'm loving it. Now, I'm not going to go into the details of exactly which unit I bought, but if you are a member of the Facebook group, which you should be, you can join by visiting resourcefuldesigner.com/group. And there is a thread there where I announced my new iMac, and I did give all the specs for the unit I have if you're curious. Now, as I mentioned in the intro, this is episode 79, so any and all links associated or anything I mention in this episode can be found on the show notes page by visiting resourcefuldesigner.com/episode 79. And now, my tip of the week. And this week's tip is the golden ratio. If you've never heard of the golden ratio, I'm not going to go into details. It all has to do with the Fibonacci sequence of numbers. And anyways, you can look it up online. There's all sorts of stuff there. But when it comes to design, there's a particular mindset in some people that you can get better layouts, better design if you use the golden ratio, or in some cases, the golden spiral. A golden spiral is made up using the golden ratio. Now, I encourage you, if you do not know what this is, go on Google or go on YouTube and look up designing using the golden ratio or designing using the golden spiral. And it's a way of positioning things in your designs to get the best layout and the best, most visually appealing designs you can, especially when it comes down to cropping photos. A lot of times a client or somebody will, or even if you get a stock photo, you might need to crop it to fit your design. Well, sometimes just cropping it is good, but it can be better if you use the golden ratio in how you position the content in the photo. It's the same as if you've ever taken a photography class, the way they tell you that if you're taking a picture of a person, never stick them dead center in the photo. You can put them in center so you can focus on the person, but before you actually snap the picture, you always move your camera a little to the left, a little to the right, a little up, a little down, so that the person is not dead center. It creates a more appealing photograph. Well, the same can be said for your designs. If you use the golden ratio, you can create a more appealing design. And why do they say it's more appealing? Because the golden ratio is a phenomenon that appears in nature, in beauty. If you look at things like sunflowers, the pattern that's made by the seeds on the front of a sunflower are all in a certain sequence that's formed by using the golden ratio. A seashell that forms like a spiral, well, that spiral is exactly the golden ratio. Beehives and so many other things in nature use them. And that's why they say it's a good idea to bring it into your design. And it's one of those things that if you start using it after a while, it just becomes second nature, where you start to know how to position things. But even some of the greats, if you look at some of the paintings, Leonardo da Vinci's, Picasso, Monet, a lot of those paintings, if you go back and look at them, as well as Greek architecture and stuff, you can often see that the golden ratio was used in those compositions, in those paintings, in those structures, in those buildings, and they've stood the test of time. So why not use them in your design? Now, as I said, there's lots of different ways you can use it. And the best thing to do is Google golden ratio and graphic design, or YouTube, and you will see some videos on it. But it's just a tip. If you want to make your designs look better, look into this. Study the golden ratio, study the golden spiral. You can even download files. I've seen them online where you can download a file of the golden spiral that you can throw on a layer in Photoshop or something. So as you're cropping a photo, you'll know that you're cropping it perfectly. So that's this week's tip of the week. Use the golden ratio or the golden spiral to improve your design work. Now, I would like to take just a second to thank everyone who has signed up to be a patron of Resourceful Designer. Your support of the podcast is very much appreciated. Now, if you would like to support the show for as little as $1 a month, please visit resourcefuldesigner.com/Patreon, and that's Patreon, where you can sign up, as I said, for as little as $1 a month to support the show. So once again, thank you for everyone who has. And now, word of mouth referrals for your design business. Now, we all know that growing a graphic design business takes a lot of work, especially when you're starting out. I've been doing this for a long time now, so I'm beyond that, but I know a lot of people who are just starting out in their business, or even not even there yet. They're just thinking of starting out. Well, it takes a lot of work and effort to grow that business, to get those first few clients and start building up that portfolio. And when it comes to building your business, word of mouth referrals are one of the most effective ways of achieving this growth. Now, not too long ago in episode 67 of the podcast, which you can get to at resourcefuldesigner.com/episode 67, which was titled A Proven Strategy for Getting Design Referrals. Well, that one was more in line if you work in a niche. And I used one strategy that I have successfully used to infiltrate the podcasting niche. And I've had a lot of people comment on that one saying how great it was, and they were going to implement some stuff with that one. So if you're curious about that one, go back and listen to episode 67, especially if you have a niche that you target in your designs. But a lot of people contacted me and said, is there something more broad? I don't really have a niche that I'm working on, or that maybe I can, but in the meantime, what about the rest of my business if I don't want to focus just on that one little niche? So I decided to put this episode together, just talking in general about word of mouth marketing. Now, as designers, we work in a world of marketing, of advertising, of social sharing, and all of that. But nothing beats an evangelist, a client who spreads the word about you and your services. Now, when it comes to word of mouth referrals, there are really two main ingredients you need to look at. One is offering great design. If you don't offer great design, there's no reason for somebody to refer you. And two is offering great service. Those two together are the key ingredients to getting word of mouth referrals. And that's why I'm always talking about, if you've listened to this podcast before, you know how much I talk about client relationships and building those relationships with your clients. I even dedicated an entire episode back in episode 20 titled Building Relationships with Your Graphic Design Clients. Because the better your relationships are, the more chance that you will get word of mouth referrals from them. And just to prove a point here, I've been in business for 12 years, successfully running my business. My business has been growing over the past 12 years. And I have never advertised my business. Do as I say, don't do as I do, because I don't even have a website for my business, which is wrong. I know that. You definitely need a website, and I admit that I should have a website. But the fact of the matter is I don't. I haven't had a website since day one. If you visit my website, it says that the website is under construction and is coming soon. And it's said that for the past 12 years. And yet my business is growing. And the fact that it's growing is all due to word of mouth referrals, because that's the only type of referrals I'm getting. Now, it used to work well locally where businesses were referring one another here around my area and I was picking up business. But now, with the advent of social media and the internet and stuff growing, I'm picking up clients worldwide, and all of them are through word of mouth referrals. Again, just to strengthen the point, here's some numbers I found while I was doing a little bit of research before recording this episode. 92% of consumers are influenced by word of mouth referrals. That means that 92% of people that make a purchase are more likely to lean towards the one that they've heard a word of mouth referral from. So if they go to the store and they see two products, they might have seen TV commercials, magazine ads, or whatever, and they're contemplating the two products. 92% of people will choose the product that they've heard somebody talk about. And that referral might be a family member, might be a friend, or it might just be somebody on TV, a celebrity or somebody. You might see an ad for one product in a magazine, but if somebody that you trust mentions the other one, you will be more likely to choose that one. So 92% of consumers are influenced by word of mouth marketing. 76% of consumers refer a company they trust. So again, it all comes down to client relationships. 76% of clients, of consumers, of people that use a service like yours will refer somebody that they trust. And that means somebody who is talking in a conversation with somebody about web design, and this one client, they might know 2, 3, 4 different web designers. And they're not going to say, well, why don't you try out this one and this one and this one? No, they are going to refer the one that they trust the most. So if you've built a relationship with them, if you've shown them the service, if you've given them their best or your best, there's a good chance that they refer you over the other ones that they know about but don't have those relationships with. And the last number I'm going to share with you here is that 59% of businesses will ask their peers before they make a purchase. And that's not necessarily their competition, or that it could just be business owners. One business owner who needs something designed, needs a new logo for something, needs a website, needs a banner, needs a trade show booth, whatever. There is a 59% chance that that person will ask their peers, fellow business owners, who they would recommend. And all of this influences word of mouth referrals. But of course, a lot of people say, well, yeah, I rely on word of mouth referrals as well, but it's not happening very much. Well, the problem is a lot of people think word of mouth referrals is something that you just sit back and wait for, but it doesn't have to be that way. You can be proactive in your word of mouth referral marketing campaign. Yes, it is a campaign. You can build the campaign for your business. Just like you would print advertising, social media, you can build a campaign for word of mouth marketing. So there are a few little tips and tricks here I want to share with you on how you can build this campaign for you. First of all, and this is a very important one, don't wait until after the project is done to ask for referrals. Now, it just seems like it's a no-brainer. You work on a project for somebody, the project is finished, they're happy with what you've given them, so then you ask them to supply referrals. Well, the problem with this is, and don't get me wrong, this does work, but the problem is once the project is done, they're satisfied, they have it in hand, they've moved on to other things. They're not thinking about this project anymore, especially if it was an event. They're not thinking after the event's over that's out of mind. They're thinking about whatever the next thing is. They might not necessarily, or your business might not necessarily pop into their mind at the first chance whenever they could be referring you. Now, maybe they are, if they're really good clients. And again, it all comes down to client relationships and how you build those relationships. If you build them well enough, then yes, those people will remember you. But it's the newer clients, especially when you're getting started and you don't have that long-term relationship that's taken years to build. When you've got newer clients that you might have only done one project or two projects for, they might not necessarily think of you when somebody says, oh, I'd like to get my car wrapped for my business or something. And they might not think of you. Again, it all comes back to also what services you offer. They might not realize if you designed a website for somebody, they might not know you do print design or vice versa. That's a topic I covered way back in episode 2 of the podcast, where I talked about, do your clients know what you do? Well, it's the same thing when it comes to referrals. So the trick is, don't wait until after the project is done to ask for referrals. Ask for referrals up front. Now, what this means is when you start talking to a client and they've signed their contract and you're ready to go, and you're starting to discuss the project in full, it's the whole discovery stage. Well, at this point that you're starting with them, tell the client what they can expect from you, what you will be providing them, not just in the sense of design, but in the sense of strategy building and discussion and service. Tell them all that they can expect from you. And then mention that if you're happy along the way, if you're happy with the service that I'm doing and the progress that we're making, tell them you would be very grateful if they would pass your name on to friends, family, and colleagues who might also require similar work. And at that point, you could also mention other services that you do. So if you're building a website for somebody, you can say, if you're happy with the website that I'm building for you and the service that I'm going to provide, be sure to tell your friends and family about, my website service, but also mention to them that I do print design, I do trade show, I do t-shirts, whatever other services you offer. Now, that has an added bonus that maybe your current client doesn't know that stuff. So it's a subtle way of letting them know. If you tell them, if you're going to refer me to somebody, make sure to let them know that I also offer these services. They might go, oh, wow, I didn't know he offered that service. I have another project that I can give him. So it's a win-win for you. Now, another incentive that you can do in order to attract word-of-mouth referrals from your clients is to offer some sort of expiring bonus offer. Maybe you want to offer a gift card to anybody who refers you, or maybe you're going to buy a dinner for them, or whatever it is. But set some sort of expiry date on it. Because even with the best intentions, unless you have a really, really good client who knows you really well because you've built such a big relationship, those clients that you don't deal with that often, even with the best intentions, might not refer you when the chances arise. They might actually forget your name, or they might forget just to bring you up. But it's one of those things, if you offer them a bonus, if you offer them something special, especially one with an expiry date, then not only will they think, I can get this bonus by referring you, but if you put an expiry date on it, it'll force them to start thinking of, who can I refer you to or refer to you? Because if you don't put an expiry date on it and you say, if you refer anybody to me, I'll give you whatever, a gift card for some restaurant or whatever. Well, they'll go, oh, that's great. But then they're going to forget about it. Time will pass and they won't remember. But if you say, thank you, I've enjoyed working on this project with you. Hey, if you have anybody that you know that could use my services, if you refer somebody to me within the next 30 days, I've got a bunch of gift cards for some restaurant or whatever that I'll let you have one if you refer somebody to me. And that's the sort of thing they might go, oh, well, that's kind of interesting. Who can I think of? And it'll give them the incentive, and it could work in promoting your business. Now, another thing that you can do to help the process along is give an easy way for somebody to make referrals. I remember talking in a previous podcast, and I don't even remember which one. I didn't look up because I just thought of this right now as I was talking. But I mentioned how when I first got started, I was handing out business cards, but I had created a folder. It was a small little fold over. It was like a greeting card, fold over card, a little bit bigger than a business card that had two little slits that I would slip 3, 4, 5 business cards into them. And whenever I would hand out a business card, I would hand out this little folder. They would open it up and there would be a business card in there. But there would also be extra cards, and the folder would say, if you're happy with my services and that, please refer. I think I forget the exact wording. It was something to the effect of the nicest thing you can do for my business is to refer me to somebody you think could use my services. Or anyways, I'm paraphrasing there. I don't remember the exact words. But the thing was, and then once they were done, if they used up all the cards, then behind where the cards were the two slits that would be hidden by the business card, when they take the last card out, there's a little message there saying, if you've handed out all the cards, first of all, thank you, and let me know and I'll give you some more cards to hand out. Well, that was an easy way. I was handing out cards. And I would send this out. This was back in the day where invoices were sent out through the mail. Now everything's done through email and such. But when I was sending out invoices through the mail, I would include one of these in every single envelope. It didn't matter if I was sending an invoice to the client every month. I was sending one of these things and they would use them. And I had the other benefit of them is a lot of my clients would receive these things and then ask me, Mark, can you make us these little cards for ourselves as well that we can put our business cards in? So I actually picked up business that way. But I was making it easy for them to refer me because I was giving them extra business cards. Call me old school, but I think no matter what sort of business you're in, you do need business cards. There are so many people this day and age that say, well, I've got my social media and all this stuff. I don't need business cards. I still believe that you need business cards. There is a lot of people out there that will not deal with you unless you can hand over a paper business card. Now, as I said, I might just be old school because of my age and the way I was brought up. But to me, I still ask whenever I meet somebody, I'll ask, do you have a business card? And subconsciously, if they say, no, I don't have business cards, I might think a little bit less of them as a business person. Again, that's just me. Now, another way that you could make it easy for them to refer you is to create some sort of form on your website. And you can tell them if you know somebody that could use my services or that you think might be interested that I might want to talk to or they might want to talk to me. There's a form on my website you can use, maybe whatever, yourdomain.com/referral. And you could put your email and it's kind of like an introduction. You can say, Mark, meet so-and-so and so-and-so meet Mark. You want to talk about this subject? Here, go. And not only does this create a way to introduce people, but it also creates a chain of custody, if you will, where the person making the referral, you know right away that that's the person that referred this other client. And I get that all the time. I get people that I've created podcasts for. It's not through a referral form, but because I don't have a website for me to put a form on, but people will send an email and say, Mark, I'd like you to meet so-and-so. This person is looking for a website or this person is looking for artwork for this. So-and-so, this is Mark. He's the designer I told you about. Now that you two have met, you can take over the conversation and my part's done. And I get those all the time. So why not create an easy way for them to do it with a form? Now, the last thing I want to talk about in regards to word of mouth referrals is to be thankful when you get them. And that should be both before and afterwards. And regardless of what happens with the referral, you should be thanking whoever referred you. I have this woman, I've been dealing with her forever. She used to be a client when I was at the print shop. And when I left, she was one of the ones that followed me. Her name is Candy, and she refers people to me all the time. I'll get phone calls or emails from people saying, hi, Mark, Candy told me I should give you a call. I'm looking for a logo for something, or I'm looking for a website, or I need a poster designed or that. And I'll talk to them, and sometimes I'll get the job. But there's other times where I realize, they want a logo and they have a budget of $100, and I'll tell them, I'm really sorry, but I can't do a logo for $100. And they'll say, oh, well, thank you very much. And that, regardless of whether I get the job or not, almost immediately after hanging up the phone, I will dial up Candy, talk to her and just say, hey, Candy, it's just Mark here. I just want to thank you for that referral. I just got off the phone with so-and-so. Unfortunately, I won't be able to help them, but I really appreciate you sending them my way. Or thank you for sending me so-and-so. We talked and it looks like we're going to go ahead with this project. Thank you so much for referring them to me. And I do this not just with her, but with anybody else. When I get a referral, I immediately either get on the phone if I can or send them an email right away. First of all, to let me know or let them know that the person they referred did actually reach out to me. Because sometimes people will refer somebody. It's like, oh, you need a logo? Yeah, go contact Mark. But that person will never contact me because you get it. You probably heard it too from people. I'll get a client that'll say, oh, by the way, I told so-and-so you should be getting an email or you should be getting a phone call from such and such a person. I gave them your name and they're looking for a website and that. And you never hear from that person. So whenever I do hear from somebody, I make a point of right away, whether I get the job or not, whether we take it on or if they're going to think about it, it doesn't matter at that point. I contact the person who made the referral and thank them for it. Now, with that said, if you do get the job and you work on that, whatever project it is, once the project is complete, I will often, first of all, contact the person who originally referred. So it's, say, Candy in this case. Once she refers somebody to me and I finish the project, I will send her an email and says, by the way, thank you again for referring this project. We've just completed it. Here's a sample of what we did. And if I can send her a PDF or a link to a website or whatever. So I always make a point of contacting whoever referred me after the project is done and letting them know how things stood, how things went, showing them a sample if I can. And in some cases, if it's a big enough project, even if I gave them a referral bonus to begin with, I will often send them another thank you gift. And that could be something as simple as a gift card for, we have this local coffee shop, donut shop, Tim Hortons, which if you know anything about Canada, you've heard of Tim Hortons. They're everywhere across Canada. And a lot of times what I'll do is I'll just send a gift card to somebody, say, thanks again for that. Here's a $10 gift card for Tim Hortons. Go get your coffee, your donuts, your lunch, or whatever. And if it's a big enough project, I'll even send them a gift basket of something. And that has paid off lots of times because, again, it all goes to building client relationships. So one client refers you to another client who brings in a really good project that you make a lot of money off of. Well, thank the first person. And that's going to go a long way to them being more loyal to you and them wanting to refer you to other people, not just so they can get more gifts from you. But again, people will share. If I go back to the numbers, 76% of consumers refer a company they trust. And that all goes to building that trust. So be thankful for the referrals you get and make sure that the person referring knows that you're thankful. So those are the topics I wanted to cover today. Different things to keep in mind to help build, to help create those relationships so that you will get more word of mouth referrals. Because when you take advantage of these little tools, these little ideas, these little tips, they will help you become more visible as a designer. They will help you and your clients gain trust in each other. And best of all, it'll increase your bottom line. And this is something that anybody, whether you are brand new, just starting out in business, or you've been doing this for 10, 15, 20 years, this is something that anybody at any stage of their business can take advantage of. Because no matter how much advertising, how much marketing you do, word of mouth will still be the biggest influencer on whether or not your business grows. So do whatever you can to make sure it does. Now, I would love to know what strategies you have in place for word of mouth marketing for your business. Please visit resourcefuldesigner.com/episode 79 and leave a comment for the episode, letting me know what your strategies you use. And now, this week's question of the week. And this week's question comes in from James. First of all, he thanks me for the episode I put out on retainer agreements. And he says he has a question. How do you handle the assignment of rights for the artwork? What if it's likely that one will design logos or original characters under a retainer agreement? Well, thank you very much for the question, James. Whether you are working on an individual project or if you have a retainer agreement in place, you should have a contract up front that states exactly what can and cannot be done. Now, I know that, first of all, currently, I do not have any clients under retainer agreements. Those are the type of things that come and go. Currently, at this time, I do not have any retainer agreements in place, but I have many over the years. And every time I had some sort of stipulation on what I would be done and what would not be done under a retainer agreement. But as far as transferring rights over, that part shouldn't really matter. Whether you're under a retainer agreement or if it's an individual project, it doesn't matter how the client is paying you. Once the project is finished, the rights should be assigned over to the clients, especially if it's something for a logo or a character that they can use. Now, in some cases, you can, like when it comes to a character, like say you're building like a mascot or a certain cartoon type character or something, you can assign the rights to the use of that artwork, but not assign the rights of the character per se, so that they can't go and get another artist to design that character. But that's a completely different topic, as now we're talking about copyrights and all that. But right now we're talking about the whole retainer agreement. There should be some sort of guidelines in place for what you can and cannot do. I know when I had a retainer agreement in place with clients, it was mostly for layout and that sort of thing. I specifically had in the contract that if they needed a logo, the logo would be charged extra. Now, I don't do artwork, so characters and stuff like that wouldn't apply, but I would only do flyer designs and posters and that sort of stuff. But if it was something that would be used over and over, like a logo, that I had it specified in the contract that I would be charging extra, and we would discuss that as a separate project outside of the retainer agreement. Now, in honesty, most of the jobs that are done under a retainer agreement don't necessarily require the rights to transfer some sort of ownership over. So that could be the guideline. Anything that would require the transfer of copyright, the transfer of ownership to the client, those sort of projects maybe shouldn't be under a retainer agreement. In most cases, the retainer agreements I had were all mostly for websites. So it was like maintenance or adding stuff, adding things, changing stuff to the website, and that sort of project. Well, there's nothing that would require the transfer of rights. It was one of those blank general statements in the contract that once the work was done, I knew that the work belonged to the client. Now, if you don't have anything like this in place, if you are designing logos and characters under a retainer agreement, then there should be a stipulation that once the project is done, once the logo is complete, once the character has been designed, ownership of said logo and character should be transferred over to the client, unless you put another stipulation in place specifically for that project. So that's how I would handle that situation. In most cases, I just wouldn't put it under retainer agreement. I would say that logos, characters, and I've already said this just a while ago, they would all be on a separate project outside of the retainer agreement. So that's the way I would handle it, James. I hope this answers your question. Now, I am running very low with questions, so I would love to get yours and help build up my mailbag again. So please visit resourcefuldesigner.com/feedback to submit your question, and I will consider answering it on a future episode of the podcast. Now, before I go, I'd like to share another review I received on iTunes, and this one came in from Oming Mac from the USA. It said, I stumbled upon this podcast accidentally while at work one day. I work as a graphic designer for a small business, but I have never formally been trained or worked at an agency. I'd always daydreamed about starting a home-based design business, but never thought I could because I have no degree in it or real-world experience. This podcast has given me the confidence to start my own business and answered all of the questions I had. Great job. Thank you for this lovely review, Oming Mac. I'm really glad that the podcast is able to help you. Speaking of helping, if you know any designers that you think might benefit from Resourceful Designer, please send them over to resourcefuldesigner.com and introduce them to the show. If they want to subscribe to the podcast, have them visit resourcefuldesigner.com/subscribe and have all the instructions for the various ways you can subscribe to the podcast, whether you're on an Apple device, an Android device, or whatever. So resourcefuldesigner.com/subscribe. So if you know a designer or somebody in the design space that you think might benefit from this show, please pass it along. So that's it for this week's episode. Hope you got something out of it. So go out there and keep building those relationships so that you will get the best word-of-mouth referrals you can. Well, that's it for this week. I am Mark DeCote, wishing you all the best in your graphic design business. And as always, reminding you to stay creative.
Thanks for listening to the Resourceful Designer Podcast at resourcefuldesigner.com.